Alright, welcome back guys. Today we are going to be talking about these right here. So, as you can tell by the giant box in the background, these are ProHear rechargeable Walkie Talkies. And I have two of them that I've been kind of messing with, just to kind of get an idea of how I like them or how they work, or kind of figure out what I would use them for. And full disclosure, ProHear did send both of these out to me. Originally they were just wanting to send one, but I told them I need two of them in order to actually test them out properly, so they did send out two. So for what it's worth, I did not pay for these. These are relatively cheap enough where I don't think, there's really any bias to be had for giving these to me anyways, because like I've said in all my other videos, I generally lose money on pretty much everything I do for this channel. So all that out of the way, full disclosure, whatever. These are Walkie Talkies that are made for Howard Leights, and they do fit the ProHear model hearing protection, their Ear Pro. And I think there's another brand that they fit as well, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But you can look, you can look online and kind of see what all they fit. But if you're familiar with not the Howard Leights, but if you're familiar with the Walker Razors, they make kind of a radio clip-on that fits, it's proprietary, that fits with their headset. And I think Warrior Poet Society was the first person, John Lovell was the first person I saw actually using those. And he talked about how he used those for, at the range, so they can communicate easily with each other, because sometimes you're wearing double ear pro, you're wearing plugs underneath, and then you're wearing electronic, on top or something like that. So it's hard to communicate with each other sometimes, depending on how good your hearing protection is. And having used these, it's actually louder when I'm using double ear pro. Like if I'm wearing foam plugs underneath and then I'm wearing this over the top, I can actually hear the person talking to me better when they're utilizing this walkie-talkie versus just the amplification on my Howard Leights alone. Now, to be fair, one of these Howard Leights, I don't remember which one it was, but one of them I shot out in a pistol course. It was like a 2-day course and it rained the entire time. So it's a little wonky when it comes to the sound quality. But the other one, it's still, like, one is louder than the other, just natural sound amplification, because I assume it was damaged by the rain to some degree. But that said, even in the one that does get in quote-unquote loud enough with double ear pro, it's still easier to hear with this walkie-talkie going through the headset than it is just the headset by itself, because this radio, or not the radio, but this walkie-talkie also, and you could call it a radio if you want, I guess, but this has a volume adjuster to where you can turn it up louder or softer, but it's still utilizing the same volume through this, so you can turn it up and you can really hear people very clearly. And I like that because I already have tinnitus because I was a percussionist, so there's that. Wear ear pro or plugs if you're a percussionist. Anyway, so I already have hearing damage from that, and it's already hard for me to hear a lot of times, but I protect my ears by using double ear pro. So having this to where it'll actually communicate louder through my headset when I'm wearing double ear pro is a nice feature to have. Now let's talk about what these are and what they are not. I've already talked about how I enjoy the fact that I can hear things more clearly whenever someone's communicating with you. Now that said, the person's going to have one of these as well in order to communicate, so there's that. I don't consider these an alternative to a good radio for, like, the world is ending, or whatever you want to throw in here for different scenarios, because it's using just your family radio frequencies. So it's not like it's something that's super secret and everyone's going to be able to hear you. So is that a downside? Honestly, no, not really, for what these are. Now in theory, I guess you could use these for that scenario and just, I don't know, speak a different language that other people don't speak, or go whole what was that movie, Wind Talkers, where they spoke in Navajo during World War II just to confuse the Japanese. So I mean, there's things you could use to, if you don't have an encrypted radio, or someone's listening, you can use some sort of special speech or passwords, whatever, to communicate if you wanted to. But that's, again, not what I really consider these, because they're not exactly the most durable things on the planet. And again, they're only about $35. So for $35, that's about the price you would pay for, like a 2-pack of radios from Walmart. You probably get 2 of them for about $35. Versus this, you just get one, and that's fine. But for $35, I was actually impressed on how well made it is. One thing I don't like about it, but I do like about it, it's a pro and a con, is it has a chargeable port right here. So the battery's internal, and it just uses your little standard plug right here to charge it. And normally I don't have an issue with that, and I don't really have an issue with that as well. But if that battery goes out, you're gonna have to replace it, and you can't, replace this in the field or at the range. You're gonna have to charge it. So if you're going to use these at the range for any sort of professional use, or for, say a long day or something, maybe you might want to buy 2 of these just so you can swap them out, if one dies. Now that said, if I turn on the power here, you can look on this one. This one, it has 5 bars for the battery. Hopefully you can see that. And it's only gone down 1, and I left this on for 24 hours, and we played with it for a little bit, me and another dude, just testing it kind of across a urban area, just to kind of see, what the range on it was. And with us playing with it for, maybe 30 minutes to an hour or something like that, and leaving it on for an entire day, it only went down 1 bar out of the 5. So the battery life on this is going to last you pretty much an entire day for sure. It'll probably last you longer than that, but I just thought that was worth mentioning, because since it is a rechargeable and you can't swap out the batteries, I thought that was worth mentioning, because some of you are going to want to know that. Now again, what I would use these for mostly is just on the range when you're trying to communicate with somebody, because if you're going to a range especially that has longer like rifle ranges, like ours goes out to 810 yards if I remember correctly. Now, will these go that far? I honestly don't know. In theory, this type of radio can go up to 2 miles. That's like clear line of sight, no obstructions, perfect conditions, all that kind of stuff. When we were testing these, we were testing them in an area that it's more or less kind of like a city's, I don't know what you would call it, like soccer fields, baseball fields, sporting area where you have a long drive that's kind of windy. There's a whole bunch of trees in the way, a whole bunch of small buildings in the way, metal fences, stuff like that. But it's kind of open. So in that situation, or in that environment, we got roughly half a mile of clear transmission. Past that, you could sometimes hear them, sometimes you couldn't. And again, there was no direct line of sight. There was trees and buildings, fences, stuff like that in the way. So I would consider that good enough, because at most ranges you go to, you're not going to be going probably a half a mile. And if you are, it is going to be a long range open field where you have a large, field of view. And if you need to communicate with someone down there at the other end, this will work adequately. All right, so let's talk about the features. Let me set this to where you can actually see it. So let's talk about the features on here. It does come with a manual. It says read before using. Sometimes I do that. All right, so on here, it'll kind of go over all the different stuff on here, and I'm just going to go over it quickly. You have your volume control, you have your screen, your power, display, Type-C charging interface. I already covered all that. The menu mode shows you what menu you're in. The channels, it has, I want to say it's 22 channels. Yes, 22 channels, but they have sub-channels that goes up to 99. And from what I understand, my, caveman brain is more or less anything you transmit. Let's say you turn it to channel 10 and you have it on sub-channel 20 or whatever. Anybody who's using a radio that can go through these frequencies, a family radio, which basically everybody on that channel will hear what you're broadcasting. But if you have it on a sub-channel, you will only hear what other people are broadcasting on that specific sub-channel. So it basically filters out everybody else who's only on channel 10, but they're not on channel 20. So again, everyone else is going to hear you that's on channel 10, but only the people who are on sub-channel 20, or you will only be able to hear the people that are on sub-channel 20. So if you have a group of dudes at the range, and everybody else at the range also has these, as long as you're on a different sub-channel, you shouldn't have to worry about hearing everybody else. You'll only be able to hear, what your group is talking about. So I thought that was kind of a neat feature. I assume the frequency is just ever so slightly different. I don't know how that works. Again, caveman brain. If you know how that works, put it in the comments below. I'm curious to know. They do have, customer support. There you go. Throw that in there. So on the back side, again, I'm not going to bore you too much with these details. You can read for yourself. They charge just fine. The radio operation, there's all the things how you can select everything. Great, fine. There's the sub-channel modes. There you go. Voice activated. So this I thought would be something cool, and in reality it's not, because it has 2 modes. Well, you have, I think, the low, and you have the high sensitivity. And the low is for like environments with noise like wind, and the high is for sensitivity for low wind areas or for indoors. So again, if it's something where it's making lots and lots of noise, the low is going to pick up a little bit better versus the high. And again, all you're doing is talking at that point. You're not actually pushing any buttons, and it's registering that you're talking and transmitting. Now that said, I did try those out, and they kind of work. But in reality, if there's any sort of ambient noise, like even just like an air conditioner being turned on next to you, is going to activate more or less both of them. So I don't really consider this. I mean, it's a thing, and if you're in an environment where it does work, then great. You know, it's nice just to be able to talk and transmit, not have to push a button. But I don't consider pushing a button really all that big of a deal, personally, just because where I'm at, you know, I can push a little button right there, not a big deal. And again, I like where they put their buttons. So on here, the push to talk is actually on the little mic, and I like the fact it's not a big long mic, so you don't look like super operator. It's just kind of out of the way because you don't need it directly in front of your face. You just push a little button and you can talk. So I like that. The placement on there is not annoying. It's not obnoxious. It's a good spot. All right, and the reason I agreed to review these is because I own 2 sets of Howard Leights. Obviously, this one's been spray painted because it used to be on my helmet, and I took it off. I prefer the Peltor Range Guard Sports, I think is what they're called. They're like the gray, kind of oval-shaped ones you can get on Amazon because they're smaller than the Howard Leights, and they have like a cutout at the top and the bottom for the stock and for like a helmet. So if you're going to mount a set of cheap Ear Pro to a helmet using like arc rail adapters, get the Peltors. And I wish ProHear made a set for those Peltors because I would clamp them on there. Now, that said, these are not going to fit underneath the helmet. Obviously, these are chunky. If you have Howard Leights mounted to your helmet, these are not going to fit underneath your helmet. You're going to have to wear like a boonie hat or something like that. Now, if you have a high cut, like a maritime helmet, you might be able to get away with it, but on my standard high cut helmet, it did not work because there's just not enough clearance. So how this clips on, you can see on here, it just has a little spring-loaded tab, and that's all it does. It just clips on the bottom, and then the top is just basically a piece that just clamps on over it. So they're easy to take on and off because of that. They're not the most stable things on the planet. Let me take this off just so I can show you. It also plugs in to the audio port right there. It just uses a standard plug. So it has these anti-slip pieces on the inside, which, I mean, they help. They do. But in reality, like if you know you're going to leave this on here for a long time, I would go ahead and just clamp it on there and just get some Gorilla Tape or duct tape and just duct tape over the top just to get it on there, because it's probably going to fall off at some point if you're, you know, moving around, shooting, all that kind of stuff. Now, again, it's on the left side, so if you're a righty, it shouldn't get in the way of your stock at all. But if you're a lefty, it could, depending on what kind of gun you're using. All right, and I apologize for the mess. Sorry, I'm working with limited space here, and I have so much crap on this table to review that I'm getting to at some point. It's just really hot outside, and I have no motivation. All right, so would I buy these? If you want something to communicate with each other at the range, and you already own Howard Leights, I think these are a no-brainer. Go ahead and buy yourself a set. I think they work well for what they are. They're only $35. They're not the most durable thing on the planet, but I actually took these while it was attached to the Ear Pro, and from outside of the car I was in at the time, I put them face down like this and just dropped them onto concrete, and you can see that's why it actually has a scuff right here and the scuff right here, and nothing on it broke. Everything still works fine. My Ear Pro still works fine too. So are they durable enough for the range? Yes. One thing I would like to see them do, though, is just make specific models for specific Ear Pro. Maybe they'll get around to that, because this one, it clamps on, and as you can see right here, there's no actual, like, it just has a lip to keep it from coming off this way, but there's nothing to actually grab into the Ear Pro. It just kind of holds itself in place. Is that fine? Is it going to fall off? No. But I would like something that just kind of clamps on a little bit more permanent, and they would only be able to do that if they made model-specific ones. And again, I would request the Peltor Range Guard Sports specifically for these, if that's possible. They weigh nothing. You're not going to notice them on your Ear Pro. All right, and are these for you? I don't know. You decide. I personally think for $35, and especially if you go to the range with a lot of dudes. Now, if you don't have friends, well, you know, I don't know what to tell you. These aren't for you. But if you have friends and you go to the range a lot, and you're all, you know, relatively close, within, you know, half a mile to a mile away from each other, especially if you're out, like, say, in the west area, like a lot of y'all cool guys, you know, have all the big giant open just public land that's out there you can shoot at. If you're shooting at that kind of stuff, something like this would actually be really useful, because you can communicate, you know. But then again, everyone has cell phones, so it's up to you whether or not this is for you. But hopefully you appreciate this video. If you like this kind of content, I can review more stuff like this. I prefer gun related things, but this is something that would probably be a little bit more practical for a lot of you, especially if you have buddies that you go to the range with. But anyways, hopefully you appreciate this. Give us a like, comment, subscribe, you know, all that good stuff down below, and I appreciate it, and have a good one.